Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you had a nice lunch and some nice protein. Those of you that were here earlier kind of heard a little bit of our perspective about peyote. Lophophorus williamsi, pejuta, shama haze, hickory. There's a lot of names for the medicine, you know. And today here, I'm here on behalf of the IPCI, Indigenous Peyote Conservation Initiative. This initiative has a little bit of history behind it. If you recall, I shared a little bit about my leadership with the Native American Church of North America. In 2013, that organization initiated a PRP1, which was the Peyote Research 1. We requested assistance from the Walker Research Group out in Boulder, Colorado, to help assist us to look at the issues around our sustainable peyote way of life, our sustainable harvest. So within that finding that there was a shortage and will be a shortage of our medicine in due time, and this has been going on since the 1960s. There's this talk about the shortage of medicine. You know, if some of you are aware that this in Texas is where our medicine grows in the southern regions of it. So the Native American Church of North America is just a coalition of Native American churches. And that coalition started to look at, you know, how supply and demand is an issue. What are the issues of our way of life in helping us to go forward with it, you know? So that's what we're here for, is just that. So they told me to point this at you and push it. Okay, there we go. There we go. So as we go down the slides here, I'm just do my best here to give you guys some time for questions, because I know a lot of you do have questions. But you know, this medicine here, it has a lot of history, tribal history behind it. We just got back from Mexico, and this IPCI is a collaboration of indigenous organizations. The Huichol people that we know, the Rivatica people, we've unified with them in the preservation of our medicine, or their hickory. In Mexico, there are concerns about the developments in Wirikuta. Wirikuta, is anybody familiar with Wirikuta? Yeah, there are some that are familiar with it. So there is this concern of development that has been happening for eons in Wirikuta. And so they're also concerned about what is sacred to them. And so in 2011, we united with them on a resolution, and we spoke on their behalf, and they spoke on their own behalf too at the United Nations in regards to preserving their way of life and their medicine and their sacred sites here. This is just a clip of our big family and what we represent here. You know, everything is a family, and this medicine is a nerica. It is a family. This medicine grows in a family, and everything has a family. In nature, there's a family, so we all are a part of it. These are just my bloodline folks. This is my grandma Alice and my grandpa Sam. So, and then the other gentleman I'm not familiar with, but the guy that's in the darker outfit there, that's my grandpa Sam. And I mentioned earlier that, you know, Carlisle boarding school had a lot to do with assimilation. And so a lot of indigenous tribes were learning about each other at the boarding schools. And so we were mandated, you know, to go over to that boarding school. So children were stripped from their families and sent to that boarding school. So my grandpa Sam was one of them as well. And on our reservation was also instrumental in bringing peyote to us at that time. So when we're talking about a little bit of the lineage, and every tribe has a history behind their policies. You know, so today when you go to different tribes, you see Indian reorganization, or what is known as a reservation, some land allotted to them. That kind of stems from the treaty boundaries. So 1868 treaty for us stemmed from the east bank of the Missouri River to the Bighorn Mountains to the Platte River, which encompasses South Dakota, Wyoming, and Nebraska. So, but that eventually dwindled down to what is known today as the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, Pine Ridge Agency from the Dawes Act. So the government came in, started taking our land base, and including the Black Hills. So they started taking this away and then sending our children off to boarding schools. So, but that, in the boarding school era is when a lot of tribes started to come together on different platforms and help each other. And that's where our medicine started to be shared amongst, and the fusion of our peyote started to go north a little bit here. And this is just some of our structures, our teepee structures. In the old days, it was buffalo hide, and these teepees were not as big, a family-sized teepee here. And what I will share a little bit about that is that you also is symbolic to our cosmic view about what is sacred on the top and what is sacred on the bottom. This tikche, we call it a tikche. And the thing about a lodge is about clockwise. And then, so we come into the lodge from the left and go around, and there is a male side and there's a female side to this lodge. And so there's a teaching around how you walk in a lodge right here, and especially in a prayer lodge. And so symbolically, this is all the women. This belonged to the woman. And so she was the caretaker of the fireplace when the men were out there providing. These are some old teachings that we still kind of share with our youth today, because being able to go to a puberty ceremony that passes your responsibility now as a young adult. We have, in Mexican culture, they have the quinceañera. In Diné culture, they have quinalda. In Lakota culture, they have ishna tea. So in different stages of our life, we're doing ceremony to that renew that responsibility in it. So, but this belongs to the woman. And if you went on a hunting trip and you came back and you didn't have no meat, you might find your belongings right outside the doorway there. And I'm pretty sure you could understand what that meant. But it belonged to the women, ideally. So in our culture, there's a balance of male and female. It's not one or another. And different tribes are different here, but that's how we are as Lakota people. This is just a picture of the coalition here. My wife and my brother Stephen, and his wife Lucy, and Andrew. So I'm the chairperson of the Native American Church of South Dakota. Stephen, in the middle, is the chairperson for Azeh Benahaga of the Nation. And then Andrew is the current chairperson for the Native American Church of North America, who I served 2 terms with in that organization. We also are missing Charlie Haig, who his representative is Mr. Eugene Black Bear Jr. from Oklahoma. So these coalitions were formed in the early 90s as the National Council of Native American Churches. And that coalition was to help legislation and pass legislation. To currently, our current legislation is Public Law 103-344, the American Indian Religious Freedom Act Amendments of 94. And that is the current federal policy that protects us as indigenous people. So those are part of the coalition of the National Council of Native American Churches. Today, the National Council of Native American Churches is the indigenous voice of IPCI. The indigenous voice of IPCI. So the mission of IPCI is empowering indigenous communities to conserve, regenerate, and reconnect to their sacred peyote medicine for spiritual use for generations to come. And these are our strategies, as you can see here. The idea became apparent when we started looking at Peyote Research 1, and then we moved into another continuum of that research to PRP 2. So from 2013 to almost 2017, we were in this time period of researching on what are our issues. We came to Texas, in Austin, in February of 2016. We talked to public safety, Texas DPS, about their regulations around peyote because it affected us. In the beginning of our way of life, we have always been controlled by the powers to be. In the beginning, it was the Texas Department of Public Health that we would have to report to. So in the north, we had relatives that would be making a journey, a pilgrimage down to Miranda City area. And at that time, there was a grandma there named Amada Cardenas that housed a lot of indigenous people. And she would help them and take them to various spots to do harvesting. But over the course of that time and her passing, things have changed. So they were authorized and licensed by DEA to hold a license to be able to harvest the medicine and employ people to harvest that medicine. And she passed on, and now there's some other peyoteros, they call them, or peyote distributors that are licensed by the DEA, and Texas DPS knows about them. So that's how today we currently get our medicine, is through that. And so through that, we started looking at these strategies. And when we started coming down to Texas here, the ranchers started saying, you native people need to take care of your own medicine. You can't be letting other people, we get tired of them people poaching on our land. We want respect to our land. They keep crawling over the fence, and how many people that we find out here poaching medicine just to sell it to you guys. He said, you need to take care of your own, what they were saying. And we heard that over and over and over. So the concept of sovereignty started to come again in our focus of our strategy here. So that prayer became a spiritual harvest. And we shared that prayer over there at the Parliament of World Religions in 2015 as well. The spiritual harvest of it. So we've been disconnected from obtaining our medicine ourselves. And if you know anything about the transfer of energy, you almost have to be sound in what you're doing. So I'm going to harvest this. I'm going to harvest this right here, but I had a different thought. That thought actually, this plant feels your thoughts. Y'all believe that? It does. So you have to be, and what we were saying is that you have these distributors out here, and I'm not saying nothing bad about them, we depend on them, but we had people that were coming and saying, well, my medicine, there were people that were intoxicated using alcohol to harvest our medicine. That was one complaint that we heard. These are complaints that came to our table. And so with all of these here, what are the solutions to it? The solutions were to obtain land ourselves and to take care of it ourselves, because that was the concept of some of these old practices never fade away. And so part of that is this planting and harvesting your own medicine, So in a sense, we have to look at regulations that govern us today. In our current policy, it does not say cultivation. There's different languages in our policy, current policy, that doesn't really fully allow us to do what we want to do. And we don't want to change the chemical composition of our medicine. All we want to do is to be able to take care of it like we're supposed to. Some of you have children, and you've raised your children, and you took care of them, you fed them, and they blossomed. In that same sense, that is our responsibility about caring for our medicine. So through the help of this coalition, IPCI, we're blessed to be a part of River Styx Foundation. Some of you know River Styx Foundation. They've helped us, Bronner's, they've helped us to guide us in a way that we could accomplish that. So in south of Texas, in Miranda City, we have acquired 605 acres, known as the 605 that we call it. And so this is the beginning of our project, is to start to nurture this medicine here for the spiritual harvest aspect of it. And every community, the Indian community that I've been to, we all are suffering in some way of poverty, nutrition, economical development, different things that we're suffering from. So these issues are common. And so what I'm seeing today in our own communities are methamphetamines coming in our communities, destroying the spirit of our people. And so when we look at these issues here, our medicines have to be pure as possible. to be able to help these people, because it's been a spiritual battle from the beginning. And so taking a step back and implementing our spiritual harvest is important because of that transfer of energy into that plant. It's like this water. You all heard of Dr. Emoto's study, right? On the water. So the water's been listening all this time. So the native people have been talking to this water and saying thank you, and they'd be doing a prayer about this water, and this water, these molecules form into that prayer. That's our understanding. And it took some research to do it. So in that sense, I applaud that research that happened. So now it's believable. So in that same sense, that's how pure we have to keep our medicine and look forward to that medicine, Part of the 605 was over here walking on the land and assessing the land. And all while we're walking on the land, we're paying respect to the life that lives there already. There are deer, there are snakes, there are different creatures that live there, And so there's been offerings on this land from different tribes about asking permission for us to be there. That you would, whatever life that exists there, that you will have new neighbors, and we are your new neighbors. Those kind of prayers were said on the 605 already. So we are into a new year, a fiscal year of tending to this land. Today, IPCI is the National Council of Native American Church. Today, Native American Rights Fund, River Styx Foundation, the Cactus Institute. So that coalition has been also, advising us in a different capacity. And we're thankful to all those attorneys for helping us throughout our history of Indian policy. So today we're developing a conservation site. So there is somebody on site right now, Arnold Sloman, who is our conservation manager. So the idea is to rebuild from the earth natural adobe houses, because we're from the earth, right? We build from the earth. So we bring up Mother Earth in a sense of a housing structure from adobe. And we bring in solar energy, solar panels. Everything is renewable energy that it constantly gives and gives, so we could continue our work. Our spiritual harvest would be, rest assured that when this medicine came to a community that was needed healing, that this medicine was prayed over. This medicine was spiritually, ecologically harvested by IPCI, and that your donation would go into, not to nobody's pocket, but it would go into the continuation of this project here. Because today, as we look at the issues going forward, there are many, and we have to be kind of looking back about our old practices and getting back to a little bit of what was back here. Our humble beginnings, you might say. Some of us were raised and on our reservations in tough areas. One-room house or a hogan or adobe house structures. And that type of teaching is never grow old, because you learn the basics of your foundation of who you are. So this is our conservation manager today. He is Dene, otherwise known as Navajo, Arnold Sloman. And he's down there right now. So after we're done with here, I'll be heading down to Mirando City to the 605 to continue the building project that we're currently doing right now. That's Arnold Sloman. And these are some of the medicines that we find on our property here. So we deemed certain areas as a spiritual site, so that you can go over there and you can make an offering, not harvest, but make an offering to that medicine and talk to it. So these are some medicines. And part of the project is also reteaching some of the pruning techniques, the harvesting techniques, because there's a stem and there's a root and there's a crown on it. And so by actually just taking the top of the medicine here, you're promoting that life of that medicine. And it will regenerate, multiply to a netica, and more medicine will come. So you'll see clusters of medicine. That means that it was harvested previously. That somebody harvested it. Maybe your grandma and grandpa harvested it and then it regrew. So it has the ability to regenerate itself if done properly. But time and I've even seen, other tribes that just take a lot of it, and the smaller ones, there is a purpose for smaller medicines, but, the smaller medicine also has a life. So we encourage, there's a way to look at a medicine and the ribs on it. We count the ribs on it. So anything that is over 10 to 13 is a mature medicine. And the medicine takes almost like 5 to 10 years to really fully grow. So if you're over harvesting, then you're looking at a supply and demand issue there. This is part of our strategy. We're looking at a map. We're looking at a map down there to look at how we're strategizing our structure and our community down there. So every February we meet down there, and every April we meet down there as well, and October. This happens to be in November that we'll be down there. And so the flower that comes from here, everything is a flower, everything has a flower. There's a seeds that come from this flower that the wind catches, and then it regenerates that seed naturally in itself. So there are seeds to that. And we're also encouraging our membership to really realize, so the peyoteros would cut the medicine there and they would ship it to you dried. And on the top of that fuzz, you see a fuzz there. On the top of there's some seeds in there. And not everybody is aware of that. So they would just clean the seeds off and then kind of put it to the side, and then they would use a medicine. But we're also bringing that awareness to that seed that are in there. So we created a grandma and grandpa kind of a program to bring the seeds back so we could let them go back out there in nature. Last April, what is important about IPCI is the ability to connect our generations to the medicine directly. And this is something that's purely generational right here. To be able to harvest medicine with your grandpa, and it's forever instilled, imprinted in your spirit about what you were. Not everybody has the ability to come down to Texas. In the olden days, it wasn't possible. I mean, it'll take them about a month to come down here, spend time down here, praying, gathering medicine, and then traveling back as well. So today, when you look at these generations here, we're talking about, dealing with historical trauma. We're talking about trying to reduce that and create this atmosphere of holistic healing around our sovereignty of our medicine. So by teaching the younger generation about the songs and the offerings that go along with this medicine, it's really crucial today. So that's what's happening right there. That's a young boy there harvesting his medicine after some of the instructions that we were sharing with him. And since IPCI was created, we had, and part of it is sharing that awareness about it. And the older people used to dream about having access to land. They used to dream about it, and they used to pray about it. Like we were living this generational prayer. Your grandparents were thinking good for you as grandchildren, and they prayed about you in a certain way. In that same context, these older people came to IPCI on the 605, and they cried. They shed their tears on that property because they said that this is something that was unimaginable and only what we prayed about. That we could come here by ourselves and make our prayer and harvest our medicine and be able to connect to that. It was like a prayer answered for decades, and keep in mind that in like grandma's age right here, you were jailed for possessing that medicine. You were jailed. And that's a hard thing to imagine in today's time. We just hear about it. But imagine the emotional trauma that you had just for trying to pray. Detained and jailed. So she represents part of that, generation that has the ability to come down. And we see that time and time over today when we bring people pilgrimages to the IPCI, that there's a spiritual, renewal of a deep breath, to be able to take a deep breath. Whenever you take that deep breath and you're sitting on the land and you just feel the sense of peace, and that is part of the healing that we want to instill in these younger generation. Look at that smile. So it was collaboration of people in southern Texas, some of our new friends, our property owners down there, sharing different things with us. This is also part of our prayer, because everything is a prayer to us. Everything is a prayer. Everything will be a prayer. And everything. That's just the way it is. So if you understand that, you have to meditate and pray about something. And so this prayer has been an ongoing prayer of a collaboration, of a unity of indigenous tribes that use this medicine and that are caretakers of this medicine. So we would go to Mexico, into Wirikuta and the Rio 14 and the Quemado, and this is part of one of our Maracame brothers that we were part of this past year. And Stephen Bonali from the ABNDN was able to make that pilgrimage with us. And this is a pilgrimage that is up here and on the Quemado, about 9,000 feet up. So it's a pretty good hike, actually. So, and I'm really happy that, we were able to be a part of that prayer. So it's a constant prayer of collaboration. So anything that we do, we got to pray about it, Oh, you Indians always praying about something. But that's just the way it is, And ABNDN, like I was saying, in April, hosts a conference. And so this is Lucy sharing to an audience of nothing but youth about the medicine, about what we were going to do, because we were going to take them out onto the land and show them the harvesting. So that's Lucy right there. Another one of our prayer sites here. Then we're back over here. So I'll say that much of your time right now. I was supposed to share a little bit of time for you to ask questions, but you have just a few minutes to ask questions. But I'm free any other time. And you also have these information right here, info@ipci.life, and our website that we just got going, ipci.life. You'll find everything that we're talking about, everything that we're about here. And if you want to support in this way, there's a balance of cultures that needs to happen. I understand, MAPS and their quest to free healing, you might say. I understand that quest. And I also understand that, as indigenous people, we have a responsibility also to manage that balance in it, because we've been faced with, colonization since day one. We were born into it. So today we kind of be friends and say hello to one another and find that commonality and that solutions to a better world. Thank you.